Hi, everybody. I'm here with Shally Steckerl, who is a legend of recruiting, the founder of talent sourcing. And Shally and I are going to talk about recruiter enablement. But first of all, Shally, give us some background to you.
Well, thanks for having me here. Appreciate it. I really enjoyed meeting you those days back in Amsterdam, I believe it was, and it was fun tracking your progress through your startup and all that. So appreciate being back here. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Shally, Shally, Shally Steckerl. It's here in case I forget it. Wait, see, I didn't even know what side it was on. My claim to fame is back in 1996, I started basically breaking recruiting technology to see how it worked and see if I could extend ways to make it do more things for us than what it was designed to do. Some people call that hacking. And from that early day, there really wasn't anybody out there who did this for a living. It was a recruiter's job to find people, to network through, in-person networking, to advertise and so on. But the position of what we know call a sourcer didn't exist. So arguably I was, if not one of the first people to do that as a full-time dedicated job. I was definitely one of the first. I may have been the first. I was definitely one of the first 10. And I started writing about it, blogging about it. People wanted to learn about it. So I spoke at conferences all over the world and continued evolving it. But basically the bottom line of what I do is it hasn't changed much. It's breaking HR tech to see how it works and make it work better, right?
Yeah.
It used to be the internet, then it was social media, now it's AI and automation and large language models, but it's the same thing.
And the same for what purpose?
For the purposes of efficiency, which you could measure in a couple of ways. You could measure it as expediency. You could measure it as being able to do whatever you do faster. But you can also measure it in terms of do whatever it is that you do with fewer people. And in the last few years, that's really what it's been. I've had a lot fewer organizations coming to me saying, Shally, how do we accelerate our time to hire? And I've had more come to me and say, Shally, how do we get all of this done? We're understaffed, we're underpowered, we have technology that's not working, or we don't know how to use it, or it doesn't work, they don't work together or whatever. So all of these things have to do with efficiency. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and for folks outside of the United States, the U.S. Peace Corps is an agency. It's a government agency that sends volunteers overseas to developing countries. Many nations have similar programs. Ours is just called the Peace Corps. When I was there, one of the fundamental principles that they taught us for the first 3 months, which is an intensive training program, is something called appropriate technology. And that's all about wherever you go in the world, don't try to buy the machines and spend the money on the expensive stuff. Use what's already there. Make the best use out of what you have. And so that kind of scrappiness is what translated into my career in, okay, I've got a green screen ATS for those of you that say that can pronounce CPAS. Woohoo, right? Green screen ATS. What am I going to do with it? Well, this thing had optical character recognition that was first generation and was faulty. Couldn't even recognize words like Java. I would misspell them. And so you couldn't search, right? You couldn't search for basic words because they wouldn't come up sometimes because they were all garbled up. So how do you work around that? Well, I figured out ways to look for other words that weren't garbled up and find those words next to Java and so on. So it's really about leveraging what you have. It's really about doing more with less, doing it faster, more efficiently, more accurately, and quite frankly, surviving in this breakneck pace of business nowadays. I mean, we really have true globalization now. So you're competing with, talent acquisition professionals quite literally all over the world. And sometimes labor is cheap, Adam, and people will hire 100 recruiters in some offshore country for the price of one onshore, right? And so you've got to learn how to do the job in ways that you can function like 100 recruiters.
I mean, I guess that, if I was to, there's not many people in our profession who are going to be as well prepared for survival as somebody like you, who's literally been hacking all the tools and processes and things since 1996. So, you know, presumably you would advise that every recruiter on earth is trying to follow you and be ahead of the game. Otherwise, they're going to go the way of the dodo, right?
They have been and they have. They should and they will. In other words, for many years, people have wanted to bring me in to train them, to teach them, speak at conferences worldwide, because they want to hear how I was able to do that, and repetitively and with every emergent technology. And there's been the ones that from day one in 1996, there were people in my office that laughed at me when I walked in my sneakers with a 3.5-inch floppy disk, because there was no internet at the office, and they would laugh at me. Here comes the dork with this floppy disk. But then I started breaking all kinds of company records, brought my agency from number 35 in the company to number 2 in the company, and so they stopped laughing. And the same thing has happened over and over and over again. You would hear things like, oh, Monster is going to kill recruiting. All you need is Monster. Career Builder is all you need. Indeed is all you need. LinkedIn is all you need. There's always something that is all you need, but yet people don't pay attention and they become addicted to that one single technology, and then they become obsolete. So there's been people who have followed what I do and also who have done it simultaneously, on their own. And then there's been those who didn't pay attention to that. And it's not just not paying attention to me, it's paying attention to the technology. Right now, we have a whole generation of recruiters that are afraid of technology and AI, and they would rather just not use it, ignore it, pretend that it's not there, pretend that automation isn't there because, it can't be done, or it's illegal, or it's unethical. And those naysayers are the ones that are unfortunately going to get left behind if they don't adapt, right?
So there's a mindset that's really important, and the mindset's got to be glass half full, and it's got to be, let's not work out the ways we can't do something or shouldn't do something, but let's work out how to do it. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely. Fair enough. So I have a colleague, good friend of mine, who I've actually hired at 3 different jobs, and I worked at 4 different jobs with. And she's very fond of saying this. She's probably the anti-Shally in a lot of ways, in that she's very much not technology friendly, but she's not afraid of it. She'll use it. She just wants it. It just takes a little bit longer for her to pick it up. She's very smart at what she does, and she's a very good recruiter, but she wasn't at the bleeding edge of Google search engines and things like that. She's fond of saying this: our job, this job, what you and I call talent acquisition or recruiting or whatever, can really be done with a notepad and a crayon. That's all you really need, something to take notes with. But how cumbersome is that? How awkward, how difficult, how slow is it if you get a call from a candidate and you don't remember who they are and you have to literally flip through your crayon notes to try to figure it out. So essentially, technology is an enabler. It's a way to help us get to what we need to get to. It's a strategy. Applying technology appropriately is a strategy. Getting technology to talk to each other is a strategy. These are all tools. And like in any other profession, a craftsman is not their tools, right? In any profession that you look at, an airplane mechanic, a car mechanic, a painter, a carpenter, I'm sure a carpenter can tell you can do almost everything with a hammer and a saw, right? But don't expect it to be the fastest or the prettiest chair that they've ever made. I'm sure they can make it work. You probably can make it work without even using nails. But the technology is there to make it more effective, make it stronger, make it smoother. So these are all parts of that enablement. It encompasses everything. It's data, insights, it's collaboration, it's engagement, it's assessment, it's even skill development, right? You can use a lot of the new technology from large language models to create almost like an instruction manual of what it is that I should learn. It's not going to teach you. These tools don't have all the knowledge, but you can use them to say, hey, Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, create an outline of the steps that I need to take in order to learn how to blah. And you've got your to-do list. So, you know, you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just need to, like you said, not be afraid of it and not say no to it until you've either tried it yourself or someone that you trust has tried it. That's one of the things I like to do. Is I pride myself on when I talk about something, when I write about it, when I blog about it, when I do videos, I've used it and it worked. If I use it and it didn't work, I don't talk about it. I'm not going to say bad things about a technology that I didn't find useful. But if I get it to work for what I am able to do, I'll talk about it, because that's encouraging other people to try some of those things. You don't have to do everything I say. You don't have to do anything I say, but at least be open or receptive to the idea that these technologies are not just tools. They're ways to get to where we want to get. They're the vehicle that we can use to get there. Does that make sense?
It really does. Now, you talked about like back in the 90s, people were saying, oh, you know, the internet's going to disrupt recruitment. And then, of course, we had job boards are going to disrupt recruitment. LinkedIn's going to kill recruitment. You know, there's been one, and I think you said it's all the same.
Yeah. And
So
AI is going to kill recruitment. And yeah.
well, that's what I was about to say. So, like Gen AI, of course, is the modern day like LinkedIn or job boards or whatever it might be
Exactly.
for, you know, the next phase of innovation in our professions. So, what to your mind are the things we really do need to be up to speed with on using Gen AI for?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying that generative AI and large language models are really just a stepping stone. This is not the end result.
Yeah,
This is the very first social network. For those of you out there who might remember 6 Degrees or Orkut from Google, you know, social networks that have long gone that broke new ground. What we're looking at right now is the Orkut of the large language models and
yeah,
of generative AI and of
yeah,
AI particularly as an entire segment. So don't think of this as, oh my God, I'm going to have to learn how to do this. But you do need to play around with it and learn how to get along with it, because whatever it evolves into, it might be easier to use, but the same principles will still apply. You'll have to use critical thinking. You'll have to use adaptation. Right now, to get something out of a ChatGPT, it's incredibly rare that you'll get the best answer from the very first prompt that you give it. So prompt engineering is the modern equivalent of sourcing. When we used to
yeah,
manipulate search strings with commands
yeah,
like and, or, file type, and in title, we used to do that and manipulate them and change the order and add and remove. That's exactly what prompt engineering is. So
yeah,
you're not really learning anything new. You're just applying it in a different setting for a different outcome. In this case, these large language models are just language models. In other words, they're looking at words. And something we forget is that these are static words. None of these models right now really have direct access to current internet. They may be internet enabled, ChatGPT 4, for example, but it's not really indexing everything all at once, right? There's no, Google themselves will tell you they never attempted to index the entire internet because it grows by so much more per minute than they can even have the capacity to calculate. So we're never going to use ChatGPT to find anything or everything, but we are going to be able to summarize things. And so we need to learn how to use these tools for the purposes that we need them for, not to go live. If you go online and you Google ChatGPT recruiting, 9 out of 10 posts are going to be copy a job description, paste it, and rewrite the job description. Like, no, I'm sorry. First of all, let's start with the fact that those job descriptions are absolutely horrid already as it is. And taking a turd and polishing it just makes a shiny turd, right? So, these applications aren't going to be able to polish that turd into something that's even vaguely effective. So we still need to learn what we want to do with it. We can neutralize language that might be not diverse. We can shorten, we can extract bullet points, we can understand concepts and keywords. What is it that you want to achieve? Think of the goal that you have in mind. And what recruiter enablement is a way to get to that goal sooner or with less effort. It's one of those two. It's either time or money, right? It's either do more with less or do it faster. And that's what this technology is really helping us to do. So think of what that goal is. Don't go to ChatGPT and try to learn what you can do with it. First, have an idea. What do I want to do? And then go see how you can make that happen with ChatGPT, for example.
Wonderful. Shally, we haven't even covered the subject of recruiter enablement particularly. Everything that you've said has been absolutely relevant to recruiter enablement, but in these are bite-sized interviews, and so what I'd really love to do is get you back in a few weeks' time and talk more about the specifics of like how do we enable recruiters with the technology types,
right?
Like practically, how do we put them in their hands? How do we tell them how to do it? You know, all the practical steps. So hopefully you'll agree to come back in a couple of weeks' time. But
I agree,
like
absolutely.
everything.
There's a huge need for that, Adam. You know, I mean, you can't expect every recruiter to go out there and figure all of it all out by themselves. They didn't do that with sourcing. That was my job. I went out there and I figured it all out. I wrote about it, and then they picked up the pieces that they wanted. They took the pieces that they could use in their setting. So it's the same thing now. And I think recruiter enablement, the long short of it is, if it's essentially that's the key is, what are our objectives and how can we leverage what we have or what we can easily get to get there, and actually have somebody responsible for that journey, as opposed to just willy-nilly saying, hey, recruiter, it's your job to figure out how to do your job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Shally, let's come back to it. Really, really loved learning from you today, and a lot of what you've said really resonated with me. I started back in the 90s as well, and the evolution has been quite fun to watch. So, thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
A pleasure. Hope to be back.